Hey y'all, a quick note before we dive into this episode. I recorded this in person with Rob and Arzón here in New York City. Unfortunately, we do not have video for this one. So it's an audio only experience. Go ahead and listen on YouTube if that's where you are, or come check us out on your podcast app or Spotify, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to hit that plus sign up at the top so you can follow the podcast, get notifications when new episodes come out, and support the show. Thanks so much. Hello, Robin. Welcome to Overpriced JPEGs.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with me in person, which is always my favorite kind of conversation. So I rarely start podcasts this way, but I think with you, it's important to, which is I would love to get your brief story. You went from a corporate lawyer to fitness star, whatever you want to call yourself, multi-hyphenate, entrepreneur. Give us the quick version of that story. I think it's important for my audience who may or may not really know you and your story to hear that.
Sure. I'm Robin Arzón. I was a corporate litigator. I used to be a corporate litigator in New York City for about 8 years. I live a life of athletics now, but I was not an athlete growing up as a kid. I used to say that I still say that I was allergic to exercise. That's certainly no longer the case. But I was the straight A student. I grew up in a Puerto Rican and Cuban household in Philadelphia before moving to New York City. And movement became a really integral part of my life during law school when I really ran through a lot of trauma. And that became an inflection point in my life. And I was, as I mentioned, a corporate litigator for a bit. And slowly I started falling in love with running and what the physicality of movement can do to spark other areas of our lives. And yeah, that kind of brought me to what I do now iteratively. It was probably a 2-year process where I was working 80 hours at the law firm, counting down the moments till I could run. Out of my office window, I could see like a sliver of Central Park. And I would count down the moments until I could run in Central Park. And the experience of leaving the career that I thought was my dream job into other areas, totally different industries, what felt like a free fall. But ultimately, I was able to move into what I call, lighting my own fire. And now I hopefully light lots of fires as it relates to movement. I read about Peloton in a Fast Company article about then CEO John Foley, and I reached out cold to the company. This was during a period of time in which I was writing my first book, doing a lot of ultramarathon racing, and I knew I wanted to storytell with technology, utilizing technology as a disruptive tool. I just didn't know what that looked like, and obviously the founding team at Peloton had a very clear vision, and the rest is kind of history.
Do y'all realize what's happening over at Ledger? That the #1 leader in digital asset security has teamed up with Tony Fadell, builder of the iPod, to revolutionize the experience of owning digital assets securely. They're doing this with Ledger STAX. This is the most premium product to date, and it's so user-friendly. Ledger STAX is a palm-sized device with a new e-Ink 2 display on the cover and around the spine, meaning you can view and confirm transactions at a glance. You can also customize your ledger by displaying your favorite NFT on the cover, even when the device is off. Pair your new Ledger STAX with your Ledger Live to manage, earn, and hodl all your NFTs and over 500 coins. This space needs sleek user experiences, our iPod moment, and that's what Ledger has set out to do here without compromising their core promise of security. Keep your digital assets in the safest place they can be, a Ledger STAX wallet. Trust yourself with Ledger STAX and go to shop.ledger.com to pre-order your Ledger STAX now. They're shipping in April. And if you use the link in our show notes to pre-order now, you'll be helping the show as well. Thank you. And so what was the initial spark? What was it about Peloton that you saw that really struck you in those early days?
So I'm a big proponent of journaling and vision boarding. It's something that I detail pretty specifically in my masterclass on mental toughness. And this actually sprouted from a vision board. So I was always kind of enthralled with how we can create community and storytell around technology. And I am less interested, frankly, in the functionality of technology and more about what it can do for us. So I certainly wouldn't call myself a technologist. So I was teaching spin classes at a local studio in New York City at the time, for anywhere from 5 to 20 people, depending on who would show up, that day, super early in my spinning training journey. And I thought, I want to storytell on a global scale, because I was seeing how influencer marketing and other aspects of social media and Web 2 were kind of picking up. And I thought there has to be a way that this scales, and the way that we can light these sparks, or spark these fires rather, more broadly, more globally. So I put on my vision board, I had different quadrants. I had one quadrant for family, one quadrant for business, one quadrant for racing. I was had very specific finish lines and goals, physically and athletically at the time. And I forgot what the fourth was, maybe probably romance, because I was single at the time. And and in the business quadrant, I put modern and disruptive. And I had, images of like Apple and, like companies that were really in vogue at the time. I mean, still are in many regards. And my eyes and ears and my gut instinct just kind of peaked when I read that tiny, like 300-word blurb about Peloton. And I don't know if I would have paid attention necessarily, certainly not that early in the early stages of the company, had I not done the vision boarding first. So I think we have to name it and claim it, and kind of lead with specificity, and then be willing to pivot and iterate as time goes. But that's what I initially saw in the company. And then when I went to our very first office space in New York City, which was very makeshift, it was like 20 employees and a camera in the corner in a Chelsea rented office space, very humble beginnings, really scrappy. And I really saw it. I saw millions of people using this tool. And I thought that the story that we were going to tell and continue to tell was going to be incredibly powerful. So I really saw the vision.
What's so interesting to me about Peloton, and in the context of what we're here to talk about, which is NFTs, is I speak so much on this podcast about NFTs as an interesting tool within the creator economy, the next generation loyalty in some ways. We'll get into both those. I really want to talk to you about the creator economy piece. And I feel like we're seeing the convergence of consumer goods companies and media companies and social media stars or influencers, or, pick your less corny or cringy word here. Like, those are becoming one company. And in some ways, Peloton feels like an early example of that, where it's a product, but its moat really feels to me like it's you, it's the other instructors, and it's the relationship and community that has been built between you and your fans and your audience. When was that first clear to you? Do you agree with that? Like, what are your thoughts on this sort of trend, I guess?
I mean, I guess in that regard, Peloton is an early adopter. Like, our adage, our company North Star is members first, right? And obviously, as a consumer-facing business, that's not uncommon, but it's very much has always been the anchor. And I think it's interesting in relation to Web3 conversations, people are like, community is the new currency. I'm like, been.
Community's always been the currency.
It's always been, So, gosh, I mean, I just see so many light bulbs go on every day when people have those moments when they're catalyzing can't into can, using, I say, like, I've been building a superhero toolkit for a while. So when I started running, it was a solo journey. Like, literally one day during law school, I put my keys down and I said, I'm not going to drive to campus, to law school campus. I'm going to walk. And I have no idea why I did that. I was not an athlete ever. Didn't have an athletic bone in my body, or so I thought. That was the story that I told myself.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So that was a really solo journey. And it was, trigger warning. I had a really intensely traumatic experience happened the prior year when I was in my senior year at NYU, being held at gunpoint and held hostage in New York City, something that I'm comfortable talking about publicly now and I've written about in my book, Shut Up and Run. But that was really, really the catalyst. That was the catalyst for me to start moving. And now, after I've studied the phenomenon of trauma therapy and stuff, I understood that I was literally moving the trauma through my body physically, using movement as medicine. And that was a very solo journey. And I've witnessed when folks build bridges through things that they're interested in, get curious instead of judgmental, and really rally around things that are meaningful to them, even if it's silly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what you collect or are enchanted by. Like, if you find other folks who are about that thing, you're more likely to stay consistent and enmeshed in that world. My mom always told me, find your weirdos. And I think
found them here.
And I think that, like, you know, community has always centered around kind of finding your weirdos, but no, I think very much so in Web3 for sure.
Oh, yeah. No shortage of weirdos.
And I think it's cool that we can find micro communities, and when you layer meaning on it, which certainly Peloton has layered a lot of meaning on it, and the Peloton instructors, I think, have created their communities because we're leading with who we really are and what we're really about. And then when that sparks something in someone, they're like, oh yeah, I'm about that too. And I think that people want to feel seen and included. And the more that you can marry that with providing a real service and perfecting a product, then that's a pretty winning combination.
For you personally, when do you feel most connected to your community? And when was the first moment, and maybe it predated Peloton, but you felt like, oh, wow, I have this ability to connect with people telecommunicatively, you know, like outside of just sitting one-on-one with somebody?
It did predate Peloton. When I quit my law firm job, it was 2 weeks before the London Olympic Games. And I just knew I needed to be around athletes and storytell, however, in whatever venues would allow me to do so. And what I had in my control was my Tumblr, was my Instagram, was my Twitter. And of course, this is my first exposure to creator economy as we kind of see it now. And my life changed when I stopped accepting free running shoes. So this was kind of the time when influencer packages were kind of first starting. And I guess I was a burgeoning influencer at the time. And I certainly had a point of view on running. I was part of a run crew called Bridge Runners, which had a very rogue, maverick approach to marathon training. And, you know, you've got DJs running with fashion designers, running with drug dealers, frankly, in the Lower East Side. And we were just doing what we wanted. You know, it was very kind of like that movie back in the day, that movie Warriors. And that was the vibe. And it was very rebellious especially for a running community that was generally skewed older, whiter, more male. And that was really exciting to me. So I certainly had a point of view. And that, speaking of community, was my entry point. So they really were my community and they emboldened me to have a voice. But I say my life changed when I stopped accepting free running shoes because, of course, I was honored and very grateful that anybody would send me free anything. But I realized that the meetings with these major athletic brands to, quote, pick my brain, it's like I was basically a consultant. They were just handing free shoes and I was undervaluing myself greatly. So for sure, for creators listening, you know, you got to know your worth and then add tax on that. So I took from my legal background, I just made up an hourly rate and I called myself a consultant and I said, this is what you're going to pay me for this meeting.
No more shoes. I'll take hard cash. Thank you. And buy my own shoes.
Yeah. So, you know, that was a tricky inflection point because I was betting on myself and I was leveraging, you know, you have to take honest assessment of like what you can leverage and where you just kind of have to grind and say yes and do the thing. So that's always a balance. But yeah, that was an interesting inflection point. And that was when I really started becoming aware of what it meant to both invest in yourself and then have a community invest in your own storytelling.
Yeah. And so really did start on social media. And at that point, you were posting about your running group and posting about your journey.
Yeah. So it started as a Tumblr. So my Tumblr was Shut Up and Run, which and then ended up becoming the name for my first book. That's it. Very humble beginnings.
I love it. So, and now I'm curious, you can tell me, no, I love the experience now, but my sense is no, or you maybe wouldn't be doing what you're doing with NFTs. Like you're as big as you are, you have tons of followers across all these different platforms. Do you feel like there's something missing? Like what's missing now in your opinion in terms of connecting with your community? Is there something that's missing now in terms of connecting with your community or I've been trying to avoid saying this, but like what's missing in your experience as being an influencer? Again, understanding the cringiness that can feel with that term and you're sort of more than that, but like it kind of is a good catch-all.
It is such a cringy term. But you know, the conversations feel so fragmented. You know, it's like I have followers on these multiple platforms. Yes, there's overlap. And then from a content strategy perspective, I'm always trying to service like the functionality of that platform and the algorithm of that platform. And things feel a little bit, sometimes you get stuck in the weeds. I just want to zoom out sometimes and go to like, what is my value system? Who are those people? And how can I provide them value? Like, what is my value system? And then what is the value at our mutually agreed upon finish line? Or maybe there is no finish line. But I guess it's fragmented. The Web 2 conversations, it's like, there's only so much. I'll continue to post, right, on social. But posting something that took most of the time, a lot of resources and time to create, and then seeing the comments and likes only go so far. Like, I got to the point where I wanted to go deeper with my community. Like, it's great on social to be able to widen the aperture and have reach. And yes, you want to dig into like, are we doing video again? Are we back to native pictures? Like, what are we doing Instagram? So I'm down to play that game, that little bit of like double dutch, but I want to maintain the wide aperture of who feels included. But I actually want to go deeper, and I don't mind having a finite number of who I'm going to go deep with, if that means that we can provide more meaning and value to the group that's self-selected in.
So this is, of course, going to segue us very nicely into Swagger Society. But I want to say one thing before we fully go there, which is it's so interesting as I'm putting together the choice you made of eschewing the free sneakers, so to speak, because you weren't being like properly valued there, and you didn't like they were owning all the value and you were just kind of giving it away for free. And that's, of course, I think what's inspired a lot of creators to start productizing or again, like build their own brands. We've got Kim Kardashian, doing that and Mr. Beast, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also an element of this on the platform layer too. And Adam Mosseri, who's the CEO of Instagram, has actually talked about this as NFTs is this interesting tool to allow you to own your audience, where you have this huge community. But if something goes wrong with Instagram or what we see with Twitter, people are like, Twitter's going to go down, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that goes away. And you're at that mercy in a way that I think a lot of very empowered people and creators don't feel comfortable with and shouldn't feel comfortable with. And NFTs are a really interesting antidote to that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you said it best. Like Twitter could go down tomorrow. Instagram could go down tomorrow. Like, and we are the product, let's be clear. You know what I mean? Like these are free logins to these things. We are the product. I think intellectually we're a little bit more literate now with those concepts. But I think it's really exciting for NFT holders, for folks to, in creating Swagger Society, the folks who are already engaged, on our Discord, on our Twitter, on Instagram, they're day one stakeholders in a new kingdom. Like, I take that really seriously. And when you invest in a Web3 community and you're literally using your resources to purchase an NFT, I think that's a totally different ownership economy, right? Like, I think degen aspects of Web3 are really, really exciting. I think having provenance to something, having an understanding of like, there's like some muddy security things and like some questionable things be careful. There's some questionable things happening. But I think like in an ideal world, in the most ideal interpretation of these constructs and these community constructs, you know exactly what you're getting, you're receiving that thing, and you're more importantly contributing to a value system that everyone is kind of agreeing upon. Like, I think that's really exciting. And I think that happens best right now in micro communities. So we're starting simply and we're starting small with Swagger Society intentionally.
So let's do it. Tell us what Swagger Society is, and then we'll dive so much deeper.
Oh, I'm so excited. So Swagger Society is my lifestyle membership club. The membership is going to be unlocked through NFTs that we'll be minting this spring. And it is my vision for Swagger Society is that it becomes the holder's accountability partner. That when you are a member of Swagger Society, you have a place where you can go, a virtual place, and then, of course, physical events as well, where you can go and do epic shit. We're a community of folks self-selecting into the belief that more is possible for ourselves. And I want to basically open up the superhero toolkit and the community that I've been building for over 10 years on these other platforms, have us in one centralized place with dope art, a dope PFP. And really, Swagger Society is for people who know how to get themselves out of that self-imposed malaise and inertia, but also want more for themselves and are willing to say like, yeah, I can be a lone wolf, but where's my wolf pack? And I've always been fascinated with the idea that we all wear invisible crowns and that we are all royalty. And so that royalty theme and creating a kingdom is certainly an element to it. You know, like folks are already earning jewels to the crown, so to speak, and showing up to our events and some of our digital spaces. And it's so cool. It's so cool to be able to reward followers and have more robust conversations. And like I said, go deeper. So it's unprecedented access to me. We are having really exciting conversations about what kind of merch we're going to be offering. And I want to surprise and delight folks. You know, I've been able to do it discreetly with brand partnerships in the past, but this is on a whole new level.
And clearly this is in some ways your answer to the question I asked earlier around like what's missing in your current experience. And you're like, I want to go deeper and I want to be more connected and you know, have my value system and then create that value via my value system. Why did you feel like NFTs were a good way to do this? Like what's unique here that made you say, yeah, let's go the Web3 route for this community?
It just feels like, I mean, what isn't going to be digital, right? Like even if we have a corollary or an adjacency, you know, in the real world, which, you know, certainly there's value in that. Digital assets are the future. It felt like to build this, you know, could I have built the next Soho house? Sure. But I'm not trying to get in the real estate business. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is the future and there you can access it from wherever. And we want to be the place that on a daily or a weekly basis, you're feeling like, hey, these are my people. I want to check in. I want to check the Swagger Society leaderboard and see where I am. I want to see what rewards I've earned by my daily check-ins on the latest community challenge. Or I want to champion so-and-so because they, you know, got their business proposal done or they, you know, whatever it is, because the goal setting isn't just going to be physical. Obviously, there are folks who, I think that a lot of the folks who opt into Swagger Society already have a movement practice. Maybe they're already business owners. They already have achieved stuff and they want to get to their next level. But it's not exclusionary by any stretch of the imagination. And the goals and the reward systems aren't going to be based solely on movement. It could be reading. It could be, you know, you have to define the finish line and consistently show up to that finish line in order to achieve it. So I want to establish like taking nibbles of hustle to get to goal.
So you got at a couple of big things there. So this is not just, this is your community, your accountability buddy, your wolf pack, as you called it. But there's also some very specific components in place that you just mentioned. There's a leaderboard. I don't know if we're mentioning the locker.
Yeah,
we're mentioning the locker.
We can.
Like, and so, you know, you'll tell me, but, you know, start to flesh this out in a little bit more detailed terms for folks. And you also keep saying, like, this is where you go to check in. Where?
Yeah. So our devs are building it right now.
Yeah, I love it.
We're building a kingdom. And so I wanted to make sure that Swagger Society was intentionally inclusive. So folks who are not NFT holders, but are part of Swagger Society and do our challenges will have the opportunity to earn rewards and earn a place on that leaderboard. There is going to be a weighted system, of course. And, you know, if somebody's spending hard-earned money on something, we want to provide value for that. But I certainly don't want this to be, you know, that the wealthiest person takes the number one spot. So we're thinking about that really intentionally in terms of like what the reward system looks like and what the leaderboard system looks like. But yeah, you're going to be able to check in and log in and you'll have each member, each hustler, I should say, that's what our members are called, is going to have their own locker. And that's where you have the potential to receive direct messages from me. That's where your gated content would live. That's where, of course, your art and your digital assets would live, as well as an ability to check in with other community members and see like how you're doing, how folks are doing. And we want this to be a place where people are championing each other. We're already seeing this happen in our Discord. You know, my community manager on Discord, when we opened it after, you know, our Discord was open for a few weeks, was like, we're seeing folks engage who have literally they're like lawyers and teachers and college kids and folks who are like, I don't know anything about this Web3 thing, but like, I'm here, you know, and they're engaging in these chat functions. And it's fascinating to me. So I want to continue to expand on that for sure. And encourage folks that they have a seat at the table. And even better, you can be rewarded through in real life experiences, one-on-one access to me, merch, brand partnership opportunities that will then open up even more rewards. We're not going to have a finite reward system. I think that we've seen those things fail in the past. So we want to make sure that it's robust, dynamic, and enough of a balance of real life experiences and virtual. So people feel like they have multiple access points to get value on their investment.
So this is super cool. So I want to see if I have this right. It sounds like this is like a web-based thing. This is like when you talk about this leaderboard, that's not in Discord. You have a Discord. That's a place for people to initially come and hang out and meet each other. But ultimately what's getting built right now is a blockchain back-ended website.
Correct.
Where you'll come and there'll be some initial level for you if you just want to come and engage because you love Robin and you don't have the funds to buy an NFT, for example, or whatever.
Right.
And then if you're that much more quite literally bought in and you have the NFT, another set of kingdom doors open, so to speak, and that's where you have token-gated content. You have this locker where you can find your rewards and earn more. And is that what you're...
That's exactly it.
I love this.
Yeah, and there are multiple tiers of membership. And we want to, provide as much transparency as possible. But again, folks who are participating in our challenges, for example, I've been doing 3 for 31 every December for about 10 years. Folks who participated in 3 for 31 this past December had the opportunity to then join a raffle, or I think it was called a sweepstakes, that then, got on a Zoom call with me. And that was a Zoom call with 30 people. And that was just me and them, and we're chatting, right? And truly that's unprecedented access to me. Like normally brands are paying a lot of money for those experiences.
Yeah.
But it's cool that now that's in my hands and I can see, wow, like, yes, so-and-so, whatever your, leaderboard name of choice is, I did see you hustling every day. Yeah. And I think when you marry that with the other cool stuff that we're going to be able to do and unlock with the other tiers of membership, it's going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like there has been a disconnect in Web3. I think there's been too much, sure, you connect your wallet on a website in order to mint the thing, and then you just move into Discord. Mm-hmm. And to me, there's a lot more that can be played with in terms of content. And I do this now. I do token-gated live streams where if you have my OPJ NFT, right, you come on, you can watch the podcast live. And that's this unlock that, and I say this on the podcast a lot, but people, until you've had the pain point of trying to do a token, where you're trying to do a live stream where only certain people get access and you haven't had NFTs, you don't appreciate how powerful the digital ownership unlock is for that.
It's a key. It's like in creating this reward system, we used Marriott Bonvoy as like a good corollary, a good mirror. It's like simple to use, easily digestible. Like I don't want this to get the tokenomics of this to get super complicated. It's certainly not in the initial, certainly not out the gate. And instead of the plastic little card that you keep in your wallet and forget about, or maybe you take a picture and you email it to yourself, but it's like, let's use the NFT functionality.
Yeah, you have a gorgeous piece of art. And
then you have an amazing art. Yeah, exactly.
So there's so much more to dive into. I mean, you mentioned your artist. We should talk about your artist for sure. I want to ask one question on, you're getting into I think you guys say hustle to earn dynamic here. Mm-hmm. We've got the reward system, and I'm sure there are folks whose antennas go up a little bit because we've seen things like move to earn that, step in, or things that can start to have these Ponzi dynamics where it's the new users who are funding the benefits of the old users.
Yes.
You mentioned Marriott Bonvoy. The thing that works there is Marriott is a big corporation who has all this revenue outside that they then put towards these points to create essentially a loyalty system.
Yeah.
How is this being funded? How are you guys thinking about that? How do you make sure this doesn't become a Ponzi dynamic?
Well, we're making sure that we can actually deliver. We're only putting things into the rewards pool that we can actually deliver on and have control over. Right? So if it's in real life events with me, if it's access to me, like we're making sure that scales. And also we're keeping our initial mint very small.
Well, and critically, I don't think you're not relying on the funds. I'm sure you're going to use some of them, right? But like on an ongoing basis, I'm sure you could get VC money if you wanted. You have your personal, I'm sure you're backing some of this personally.
Yeah.
Like you have other sources of revenue that are coming in aside from just the people buying the NFT.
Yeah. Well, this is wholly owned by this is a wholly owned business.
Yeah. Not to be uncomfortable talking about your own personal life, but like, you're not reliant on.
No, we're not, frankly. And we're not relying on, I'm not relying on anybody, besides the very small and nimble and mighty team that we've hired. And this truly is, for me, a dream project to be able to reward my most engaged followers and the folks who kind of have been my day ones. So a lot of the rewards are going to center, at least initially, are going to center around our virtual and in real life events and at places and functions and things that people are very familiar with in the Web3 world. We have some really, really exciting opportunities coming out in the next 6 months with pretty big names. And the brand partners. It's like I'm not negotiating any brand deals that don't incorporate some type of reward for this element of my followers. So whether that's early access, whether it's a specific drop of merch, right? So like, so now this is part of my business model. And, my agent is like getting up to speed really quickly on Web3 because I'm like, no, this is not a traditional brand ambassadorship anymore. It's like this, we need to set aside XYZ for this community in perpetuity because we're playing the long game.
So that's so interesting. And I'm curious what, what your agent, what other people around you think of this. And would also love you to kind of just put in specific terms, like, why does this make more sense to you? Life was going well, like you could have kept going. You don't have to change all your ambassador programs or the people who want to, whatever. Like you didn't have to change all that and now incorporate this. Why does this make more sense for you?
I just want to build a home for like-minded folks. Like it just matters to me. And I don't want to be beholden to Instagram. I don't want to be beholden to Twitter to have conversations that matter. One of the reasons that I created my masterclass is because I was like, wow, like I really want to educate folks. I'm going to put a lot of aspects of my superhero toolkit in one place. Of course, that's a for-profit business. That's gated content, and it should be because their production team is incredible. But what if I unpacked elements of that and more in terms of access to me, merchandise? I've created very, very little merchandise over the years. So this is going to be a really first foray in making it's the stuff we were having conversations about. I mean, it's not just like a throwaway t-shirt from NFT NYC. I mean, no shade.
Yeah.
But, or like flip-flops from a MoonPay, event. It's delightful to get those kind of things. But what I really, every single gut check as part of this is like, would I wear this? Would I do this? Why do I give a shit? Because if I don't give a shit, it's not, I like slash meeting agendas because I'm like, none of this matters. I wouldn't even care about this, And so why? It's because I have control over intentionally creating a community that is central to the value system that has been so important for the life I've created over the last 10 years. And I know that there are people who want in and want to go deeper, but they haven't had an opportunity. So this is it's for them, but it's also for me.
So you started to reference this a bit earlier of like in your Discord community, there are doctors and teachers and people who are not necessarily technologists specifically or formally and or don't know about Web3. And I think for my audience and folks who are very deep in Web3, that's the potential of somebody like you getting into the space. And certainly folks have been burned by, call it celebrities, who have maybe done less involved or didn't know what they were doing per se, getting in the space. Talk to us a little bit about how you're balancing talking to the Web3 community by doing things like this and then bringing your own community into Web3. I know you're doing some levels of custodial wallet options for folks, Stripe payments. Like, walk us through that a bit.
Yes, we're definitely, I think payment. God, setting up my wallet. I don't think I sweat more the first day. I sent like real money into my wallet. I was like, is it gone? Yeah. How does this work? So I totally get it. It's very intimidating, even for someone, educating themselves on the concepts. That's a really interesting balance. For me, at the end of the day, I want people in the community who want to be there. I don't want their stumbling block to be, technology, like terms. Like, it's if you don't know that an NFT is a non-fungible token, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If you don't know what Bitcoin is or aren't you, I don't care. This is not, I'm not creating this for tech bros. I'm not. This is for people who want to get shit done in their lives and use technology as a utility in getting there. If it's not creating bridges, I'm not interested. We have way too many walls as it is. So I guess simple things, like even just the vernacular of like, on our on any of our assets on social or marketing, it's NFTs, digital assets, it's membership club, if you intuitively know that one is, that a digital asset is in concept is also an NFT, then what does it matter if we call it a digital asset, So I think that those are small ways in which creators and brands can be intentionally inclusive, but also I do want to learn and partner with native Web3 brands. I think it's really boneheaded and clunky when somebody with, or even certainly you see it with Web2 brands, just being like, we're Web3 now and we created this, and we've seen it obviously time and time again not work. So I'm learning. It's like World of Women, my BFF, like overpriced JPEGs, like tell me what I need to know. And even more so, let's bring my community to places where they can continue to educate themselves, because I think that's another meta message is like, be curious, but it's okay to be skeptical. I want users to be skeptical.
Totally.
I think that makes the community that much more dynamic and robust when we're asking critical questions of each other. So, yeah,
I love
That's
it.
where my head is at with building those bridges.
I think it's great. And, I'm a huge fan of any time a brand at this point or a creator it doesn't choose to use the word NFT, because I agree. And you said this at the top, right? You're less interested in the functional, exactly how does a blockchain work, how does this technology work, and much more interested in the how can we leverage it to make our lives better, to make ourselves more connected, to whatever. And that's the vast majority of people, and that should we shouldn't all be deep in the weed technologists. So I want to get to that point as well. So I appreciate that. Let's talk about your artist partnership, Molly Dixon. How did you find Molly? What can you say about the art? I know your team is so excited about it. They text me all the time being like, oh my God, we're so excited about this art.
I'm so obsessed with Molly's work. So I discovered Molly, she's done amazing work for reproductive rights. And I discovered, a Web3 initiative that she had in that regard, like a fundraiser. I was just enthralled with her art. It's really colorful. It's bold. She is a traditional photographer that now, specializes in AR. And I think the way she's utilized technology and creativity is pretty next level. And I wanted Swagger Society is obviously about Swagger Society and the membership and people getting things done in their real lives. But I wanted the art to be dope too, right? So, our mint isn't going to be only about the art, but the art's going to be a huge bonus. And I think it's such a cool opportunity to have, I will say the art is like a walking exclamation point. The art is like the person that you see walking down the street and you're like, they got it.
Swagger.
Whatever it is, they got it. So for sure it's swagger. And my interpretation of swagger is, the ability to know that you've made it through 100% of your bad days and you're still here. And why not look good for victory? It's like, I woke up today, I might as well look good for victory, So that's kind of how the art is. It's definitely bold. It's colorful. But it's very, very inclusive. We're very intentionally trying to tell lots of stories of lots of different types of folks. And that's represented too. And it was really exciting to be part of, a female-led generative PFP collection.
I love it. Okay, so give folks the breakdown here. You say it's coming, being able to mint it is coming in spring.
Yes.
What's happening in the meantime for folks who are excited about this, who want to engage with it?
Our community is already here. We had a soft launch during 3 for 31, and it's already happening. The conversations are already happening in Discord, Swagger Society, at Swagger Society on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, Robin NYC, I'm talking about it as part of now other conversations. It's one of my verticals from a content perspective.
How are people reacting to it? Media or your Web2 audience who maybe thinks, it's a bad time to talk about NFTs?
Well, what's interesting is I think the folks who are already in Web3 are obsessed.
Yeah.
And then there's a healthy dose of skepticism from folks who have only heard about NFTs on the nightly news, and of course, you hear about the FTX of it all and you're like, what what's like, you would there's just a lot.
People hate them too, like pathologically in a way where you're like, this is fulfilling something for you.
Yeah.
That is sort of independent from the tech.
I know, it's really interesting. But that feedback has been really helpful because then that has informed some of the Twitter spaces I've chosen to do. It's the partnerships. It's like, if World of Women and My BFF helped me, literally me, watching YouTube videos of like how to set up my wallet, then of course that's something I want to publicize. And I'm willing to educate myself on these concepts publicly. And hopefully that will allow, my followers, whether they want to get involved in Swagger Society or not, I want folks to feel like they can at least ask questions about this, even if it's something that they're not going to adopt. By the way, everybody's going to end up adopting some aspect of this technology. That's like saying you don't use the internet, in 1995. You will by 2000, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of time. But everybody has different access points, and that's okay. But I just want to broker the space for the conversation. Yeah. But like broadly, because Swagger Society is so rooted to the value system that I've already created of self-actualization, of self-determination, of getting shit done, of figuring out what you don't know and controlling what you can, it's pretty seamless. I mean, the synergies are already there for my existing community. It's just unlocking, what this membership is going to look like for the small subset of that who self-select to go deeper.
Yeah, I really... You are a great person to be doing this, and it's such a no-brainer. Like, again, I love the web-based, the reward system, the build the community side. Are the brands you're talking to, you're saying like every brand now that comes to you, it's like, hey, you got to incorporate this into it. Like, how have they been reacting?
Most of them love the opportunity because it depends. If it's a native Web3 brand, obviously like they have their own way of approaching, their business model. For Web 2 brands, which is the predominant, space that I currently negotiate in for my brand partnerships, they're just chomping at the bit for an opportunity to get in a way that makes sense, So it's like, oh, okay, like if you're going to be the unlock and you can tell us that this partnership to your specific community is providing value, then of course that makes sense for us to widen the aperture of our perception of this of the existing brand, right?
So that's interesting. So let me ask you, when you say get in, is that get into
Web3.
Robin Arzón fans?
No,
or it's get into Web3.
It's getting into Web3.
Interesting.
They already know that through my traditional social channels, they're going to have access. They're going to have access because that's what the traditional brand ambassadorship model is based on. It's like, I'm in your marketing, you're in mine.
Right. But it's so different because it's so much more, it's almost so much more static, right? It's like, you can post with a product behind Instagram and put a link, but it's different than an airdrop, or it's different
for sure. It's so different than an airdrop. And I think we have only just hit the tip of the iceberg for surprise and delight. It's something that, in marketing speak is like the pinnacle. It's like if you can surprise and delight your consumer and provide them something that truly delights them, either because it's it's charming or it's got value. NFTs are the perfect opportunity to do this, not only in really special ways, but consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, people know who listen to my show, this is like the number one thing I talk about is like next gen loyalty and this evolution of loyalty from just like shop to earn to like what are other ways we can connect with communities, like the efficiency that NFTs unlock when it comes to collaborating.
Yes.
Either with brands or with other, fitness instructors or just do epic shit people who maybe be in fitness or maybe in another category.
And then bringing creators together.
Totally.
Like there's just such cool collaborative synergistic opportunity here.
I love it. So folks who want to tag along the journey can go check out the Discord, follow you on Twitter. You guys are doing things, like you said, you've been doing these 7-day challenges. Like you're already doing the set your goal, get your goal done work in many ways right now. It's just without the sort of leaderboard fancy.
Exactly, yeah. So
add-ons.
There's no leaderboard yet, but the community challenges have already started. Folks have already started to earn jewels in their crown. And the community is forming and more are welcome to join. And truly it's for people who see more for themselves and want to do it in community. It's like if you considered yourself the lone wolf and you know that you're ambitious and you can get to that finish line, imagine if somebody were championing you and then also, you've got me in your corner giving you behind the scenes on my own toolkit. Like this is truly, like I'm not someone who goes live every day and you get to see everything that's in my kitchen and right? So like this is a way for me to feel comfortable in a subset of my community being like, this is the real peek behind the curtain. And then gated content that I may have done previously for a brand the brand is now Swagger Society. So it's cool that I have kind of
You get to own it again.
I have the keys to that kingdom. Yeah.
It really does remind me so much of taking that step from, okay, I'm just going to accept the sneakers to like, it's a version of that. Like I'm going to own this whole thing and it's going to be me fully and authentically. I love it. Robin, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for telling us all about this. We'll include links to everything below for folks who want to go check out more. My very, very last question, because I always do this as soon as I'm giving the wrap up, I think of another question, and you may or may not be able to fully answer this, but like how will the leaderboards work in terms of if you have one person who's got a running goal and somebody else who's got a reading goal and somebody else who's got a cooking goal?
So, I know.
Tricky.
So I mean, it's totally tricky, and we're thinking about like what kind of API partner in the future is going to make sense for this, so it will get more sophisticated. But, initially, similar to Sleep 3 for 31, initially it was really like an honor system. And it's like if you're just cheating your way to the check-ins and kind of using, it's like you probably need Swagger Society more than any of us,
Yeah.
I have really, really smart people on my team trying to figure out like, what does this look like? And how do we do this? And what data partners can we bring in? So like, it's not as clunky, but we're figuring it out. And simplicity is key. And all I care about is that people are excited to check in and do the thing, right? From a habit forming perspective, I found that something that you're willing to do every day is actually a lot easier than something that you schedule just for once in a while.
Yeah, I love that.
So I want it just to become part of somebody's day in a way that adds some buoyancy, not feels like homework.
Yeah. When I first started in this space, I can be, sort of overly logical at times. And so when I was first taking NFTs, it was like, well, does all of this perfectly make sense already? Is it all mapped out? And I've learned it is more about the vibe. It is sort of more about the vibes. It's like, what is the feeling people get when they're in your community?
Yeah.
You see it with D-Gods as an example of, I don't know logically everything they're doing, but Frank just, people get pumped up to like hear that dude talk, And so I think there's elements of that too, where it's like you have been doing literally that for years at this point, where people just enjoy your presence and the energy you bring to a community and to an audience.
Yeah, and that's going to be also the other benefit of having, holders is that there is going to be a feedback loop. There is going to be a way to say like, okay, let's adapt, let's iterate. Like if something's not making sense, let's figure it out. I want folks to feel Swagger Society is going to, my vision in how I would define excellence for Swagger Society is if it becomes a home for people to actually achieve their next level. And I think that that's going to be thousands of little inflection points where we're celebrating our victories along the way. And of course, there's going to be a reward system to provide some carrots. But I also really want to provide a tool system for folks and really unpack their kind of habits and activities of daily living. And, there's going to be opportunities for introspection, for small groups. Like I think, and then of course, for community members, not just to interact with me, which I know initially might be the draw, but my dream is that we've built this kingdom that it's like, a CEO is reaching out to another CEO, that a college student is like, hey, like I have this question, and that people really feel comfortable, sharing their strengths and leveraging them, but also being vulnerable enough to say like, I just cannot get together to do that 6 a.m. workout, or my teenager is driving me crazy. And like, who knows what that can unlock for folks.
Mm-hmm. I love it. You also, I know you've mentioned that Gary Vee is somebody you looked up to, and I think he was so at the frontier of thinking about what NFTs could do, and
beyond
there's a lot of that I think you've taken and done your own version of and put your own spin on, and it's different than what Gary's doing, but there's echoes there for sure. Which is awesome.
I'm a huge admirer of everything Gary Vee and V Friends. I'm obviously a holder.
I love it. Me too. My first NFT. Well, Robin, thank you so much. This was such a blast. I really appreciate it. And we'll be tracking what you're doing.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.